Glyphosate was originally patented by Monsanto and branded as RoundUp. It's now the most widely used herbicide on the planet.
Outside of the organic industry, I would go close to 100% of conventional farmers use RoundUp to some extent. It's essential. We don't have an alternative to glyphosate in the system at the moment. So if we can't use that product, we're back to ploughing the ground. You know, and there's some massive problems in our system if we start cultivating instead of using a chemical solution.
A California jury awarded nearly $300 million to a former school groundskeeper who sued Monsanto, claiming its weed killers, including RoundUp, gave him non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
In August, a landmark court case blew wide open the question of whether Monsanto's RoundUp products are safe.
Mr. Johnson maintained his composure today in court as that verdict was read.
As a school groundskeeper near San Francisco, Dwayne Lee Johnson sprayed RoundUp products for hours a day, dozens of times a year.
For y'all that don't know, I am an integrated pest manager / groundsman. I get you dirty every day. Some day I have clean days, sometimes I have dirty days. Today is one of those wet, dirty days, right?
He was using a sort of a pressure hose sprayer, so he was spraying 150 gallons every morning. And so his exposure was pretty extreme. And prior to his exposure, his skin was perfect. He was healthy. He had no other chemical exposures. But within 2 years after starting this sort of massive spraying, he developed this incredibly aggressive cancer that, you know, ultimately is going to take his life.
These photos show the painful lesions which started breaking out all over his body. His doctors diagnosed it as a rare form of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Madam foreperson, does the jury have a verdict? All right, can you please hand the verdict to the bailiff? I will now read the verdict in the matter of Dwayne Johnson, plaintiff versus Monsanto Company, defendant.
The jury found RoundUp was a substantial factor in causing Mr. Johnson's cancer, and that Monsanto failed to warn of the risk.
Question number 17. What amount of punitive damages, if any, do you award to Mr. Johnson? The answer was $250 million. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this now concludes your service as jurors in this case.
I'm glad to be here to be able to help, but the cause is way bigger than me. So hopefully this thing will start to get the attention that it needs to get right so folks can make a good choice.
And then the remaining jurors...
Monsanto is challenging the verdict. The documents are known as the Monsanto Papers.
These are discovery documents that Monsanto was forced to turn over to the plaintiffs in the litigation. And so far, Monsanto itself says that it's turned over about 10 million pages of documents. And this has really been eye-opening because we've seen so much evidence of how the company has worked to hide the risks of its products.
For nearly 20 years, journalist and author Carey Gillam has been investigating Monsanto.
We know that Monsanto has ghostwritten scientific literature. We don't know how much. We don't know how extensive it is. We do know that there are papers that they have ghostwritten that are out there right now, sitting in journals, looking to be authentic, that Monsanto secretly had a hand in manipulating.
Australian epidemiologist Lynn Fritchie was one of the independent experts who sat on the IARC panel.
People can trust IARC. IARC is an institution that has been doing this for a long time. There are transparent procedures as to what the groups need to do. The groups are the best people in the world on this area. They have no conflicts of interest, and they look at the literature that's available publicly, that's peer-reviewed, that's high quality, and come up with a decision.
After reviewing hundreds of scientific studies, The IARC panel classified glyphosate as a probable human carcinogen. Monsanto was furious.
So the industry were very unhappy with the finding that the IARC panel made, and there was a lot of criticism, and some of that criticism was quite personal, and some of it was about IARC and the processes that IARC go through. Some of it was criticism at IARC itself, at the whole institution. So it was quite surprising to me and quite overwhelming, really, the level of criticism that was raised. There's a lot of denial that there was anything wrong with glyphosate at all.
The EPA had invited veteran epidemiologist Dr. Peter Infante to sit on the panel. For 24 years, he worked for the US government assessing toxic substances.
I agree with the International Agency for Research on Cancer's review that concluded that there was some evidence that glyphosate was associated with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in people exposed to glyphosate.
CropLife lobbied to get him kicked off the panel and wrote to the EPA accusing Dr. Infante of being biased.
I mean, I was shocked because, I was told that, there was this letter from CropLife. I responded it was not an issue. And then, in November, about a week or so after the presidential election, I was informed that, I was being removed from the panel.
In Los Angeles, lawyer Brent Wisner's client list has grown rapidly since the landmark court case. Across the US, more than 9,000 people are suing, claiming Roundup caused their cancer.
If you go down the history of the sort of really bad chemicals, pesticides in US society or even world society, every single one of them has its origins in Monsanto. I mean, for the last 150 years, whether it be DDT, PCBs, Agent Orange, dioxin. I mean, Monsanto has been behind all of those. Monsanto has effectively made a business out of poisoning people and getting away with it. For the last 20 or 30 years, Monsanto has engaged in a systematic and deliberate campaign to attack any science that says their product is not safe and to attack any scientist that has the courage to say something. They have a corporate culture that has zero interest in safety and has only an interest in maintaining the ability of them to sell this product.
You're seeing France talk about banning it. You're seeing Germany talk about banning it. And you're seeing questions raised about the safety of this product all over the world. And I think we're only going to see more questions as we go forward.